We'll probably need to have a good hard think about how aggressively defensive, ironically, they want to be. Does decide to move in on both battlefields with the Noxus Hopefuls. We'll draw from the Seat of Power and discard one. There is going to be a little bit of an issue if Annie does not have these bounce effects up in hand and available, unless they decide to really commit. There's another unit onto the Star Spring. I believe that is a Ferris Forerunner, but I'm looking at a tiny version of the screen, if you pardon me. I believe it is a Ferris Forerunner, yeah. So obviously the death knell effect there, giving you a little bit more value, a little bit more flexibility once these units from Draven come in. Really putting Draven under the pump here, considering that they're already behind on points. Both battlefields kind of offer some interesting dilemmas. We do see a couple of switcheroos, which unfortunately do not really help in this case from the Draven player. Especially in this mirror matchup where both players are playing similarly might units. Really the switcheroos are only useful if you're trading up against a unit that already has all the equipment and other combat tricks already on it. Well, probably the 2 Chaos Rune power cost a little too much here. Kai'Sa going in on the mech onto the Star Spring. Switcheroo coming out, 6 and 4 being switched. Choosing to flash both back, so taking this opportunity to save both units. Draven now in the clear to decide if they also want to try and hold. Here, as a Draven player, you are behind in points, so probably feeling forced to go for the double hold. Very precarious position in any Riftbound game, but especially in this mirror matchup of Chaos and Fury. It's probably not a position you want to be forced to be in. Probably want some flashes or some other defensive combat tricks, maybe a Starcross or 2 up on your opponent's turn in order to save your units. Still plenty of runes open here for the Draven player to find those answers if need be. Do see a stacked deck in that hand. Is that a stacked deck? My apologies. That might not be a stacked deck. I'm looking at a really tiny preview. I apologize. Just fixing up the overlay some more while I have some time. There we go. Draven does decide to go on both battlefields here. Probably wants to at least hold on to one, if possible. Needs to catch up in point tempo as much as they can. And he's in a pretty nice position here. Already ahead on points. Choosing to stack both battlefields with all units is risky. Clearly feels pressured into doing so. Feels like they have enough combat tricks in hand to be able to profitably hold here. Recycling a couple of runes to hide a couple... Oh, never mind, playing the Falling Star, so getting aggressive here. Trying to get rid of some of these units before they become a problem. But it is hard bargained, unfortunately. With only one rune up. Can't get rid of all of that might on the Annie's side as he passes the turnover. If Annie can get on both battlefields and put a Vex somewhere safe on one of those battlefields, it is pretty much locked up here in game one. Annie considering her options. Not a lot of runes, I believe, is probably the problem here. Not quite comfortable with pushing onto either one of those battlefields. That Draven's pretty big. But only one rune up from Draven. There's not a lot you can represent with only one rune here, I don't think. Deciding to suit up the Vex, going straight in with a Noxus Hopeful, I believe, and a Vex. Switcheroo coming out. Obviously trying to swing back the tide in Draven's favor. Draven really needs to hold on to these. Annie only going in with 2 of the units to keep some flexibility behind in base. successfully gets the trade off. Draven in a huge position here. The two mechs from the first Forerunner, excuse me. Did not see it thanks to the glare, but the two mechs are back in base, and he passing back the turn here. Draven going up another 2 points, equalizing the point tempo here, and thus should be ahead if Annie can't get back on these battlefields next turn. But that's the luxury you get when you're ahead already. Draven just hoping that Annie doesn't have any more tricks up her sleeve. And there's the trades with Nox's Hopeful and Kaiser going into the trash. Unfortunately, it might look like that Annie can still be ahead by 1. However, that puts Annie in a pretty awkward position here, trying to be mainly an aggressive deck if they try to hold onto one battlefield here. She's not getting any of those big kind of combat tricks in her favor, not being able to play them on her turn, on her terms. Annie on the battlefield, taking back a spell back into hand. I believe that was a stack deck, but I couldn't quite see it. And now a Kaiser of Annie's own in the base, not accelerated, obviously probably not looking to re-aggress again this turn. Putting Draven back down onto one hold does slow it down a little bit for him, still behind on point tempo. Lots of maths going on right now. Really need to be able to count in on those assaults and also any possible combat tricks here. We've already seen a couple longswords and spinning axes coming out from both players. Spinning axes obviously from Draven, but you know what I mean. Draven really trying to think about it here. Does decide to move on to the Star Spring. Really wants to try to catch up on point tempo here. Believes that the Jin with 2 spinning axes can hold a battlefield by themselves. Probably has a whole bunch of other combat tricks in hand. I think we see the third one indeed in hand. So big swings still possible here. Showdown still open, I believe. Any thinking about whether they want to play any actions in it? I have the names mixed up. Whoops. Those names should be switched, but we'll ignore that for now. Passes back to Annie. Let me just quickly fix up those names for you, ladies and gentlemen. My bad. I only got like 30 seconds before they started playing the game, unfortunately. Oh, bloody hell. There we go. Let's try that. So now having the right people in the right places here. Game 1 would be pretty big for Annie to steal away from here. I believe the Draven did get first turn. So getting this Game 1 away from that first turn player would be pretty huge in this pseudo mirror matchup. Obviously Annie is probably a little bit more spell heavy than Draven, but both decks looking to be as aggressive as possible. Conquering battlefields, not necessarily holding them. Two mechs and the Noxus Hopeful in on Draven. Oh, that's a lot of runes being looked at there. Passes focus over to the Draven player. Spinning Axe coming out from Draven, trying to hold on desperately to this battlefield. Indeed, it's only just the trades on everyone. Looks like players are scooping, getting ready for game 2 there. Annie not quite being able to... Draven, sorry, not quite being able to come back on the Annie. The one combat where both players spent 2 or 3 combat tricks early on in the game that gave Annie the point tempo swing was probably the most crucial moment to determining the winner there. Both players now into sideboarding. From Annie's side, looking at the sideboard, their sideboard is very Tech heavy, we've got a Factory Recall, we've got a Gust, Rebuke, Starcrossed, and against the odds as well. So we're looking at more tech against um, specific types of decks. For the Draven player, it seems to be a little bit of tech, Mind Splitter against Aurora, and some of the more combo-y-ish type of decks. Also has 2 Starcross, 2 Thermo Beams in the sideboard as well for more removal. Both players probably not looking to sideboard too much. Their main advantages here are the fact that whoever goes first really needs to be able to hold on to a battlefield. Those resets back in base will be crucial, and whoever holds probably from 1 to 2 points will generally be favored in that game if they're able to spend more of their resources efficiently from their opponent who's already trying to go over the top with all the assault triggers and all of their more offensive combat tricks. They're in a pretty good position, even if they only mean to trade all their units off of one battlefield. As in most Riftbound games, points tempo here is the name of the game. Going first is a huge advantage, as Annie does get starting turn here, just playing out a Traveling Merchant and passing. Draven probably wants to match that 2-drop, and will do so with a Treasure Hunter. The Traveling Merchant here is probably a little bit better than your Treasure Hunter in this case, only because filtering through your deck looking for more options is probably better going first. You need to be able to construct that hold at some point, and filtering through your deck for those options is probably a little bit better than just getting a little bit more of the power resource here. Hard bargain discarded. Drawn 1. First point of the game going to Annie. Passing back to Draven. Draven obviously also wanting to get on the battlefield, evening up the point score. Falling Star coming out, trying to take care of both units on the battlefield. On board, I should say, for Annie. Really trying to set Annie back behind here and regain point tempo off him. Inferno coming out. Well, and trying to go over the Falling Star here. Longsword and Inferno coming out just to make sure they can hold on to the battlefield and also hang on to at least the Grim Apothecary. Tide Turner for the swap. Makes another gold. Passes the turn back over. Arena's greatest here is neither too favorable for either deck here. Both decks wanting to be pretty aggro. Annie just going for the reset, taking over Arena's greatest from Draven as well. It is pretty interesting in this mirror matchup, or pseudo mirror matchup, as I said before, that the sort of assignment of who is aggro and who is more control in this. It kind of is very dynamic depending on who's holding onto the battlefield. Currently, well, both decks would like to be able to essentially be aggro most of the time and only be a control deck to hold at least 1 point and regain point tempo away from their opponent. Current score being 2-1. Annie in the lead, having taken Arena's Greatest away from Draven. Annie pulling back some more card advantage in Annie's favor as well. Pulling back something from the trash. Draven choosing to keep going for the safe plays, opening a showdown on the open battlefield and getting a gold for their troubles. With this play here, Draven's looking just to keep up and doesn't believe they have the cards in order to be able to go over the top of Annie's, I would believe here. 200 gold riding the wind over. There's a little bit yikes here. Treasure Hunter having being the only unit on Draven's side of the field. Doesn't want to let Annie get the hold point off. Rebuke coming out for the Grim Apothecary. Annie now needs to think if they want to continue to hold on that battlefield. Rengar coming out. That's a pretty nasty blowout, as the Rebuke will resolve on the chain. Treasure Hunter will die, unfortunately. And Draven now firmly in the back seat, as Annie will go up to 3 from the hold. 3-2 in Annie's favor. Annie now looking to extend that point tempo lead. After one little hiccup, does manage to get the Conqueror 4-2. Prepares for the reset, bringing back all the other units back to base. Draven with only 3 cards in hand, and none of them are a unit, I believe. It puts them in a pretty difficult position. And I think that's the scoop. I think Annie's done it. That is indeed the scoop. Yeah, Draven just not having the tempo and then not having units as well. Draven was still on the champion field if they really wanted to, but we will be going to game 3 here. Both players having won the games where they went first. It is kind of expected out of this matchup. You're probably looking, from either side, you're probably looking to construct a hold once out of somewhere, just to be able to regain that point tempo if you're the second player. Or you're kind of hoping that their mulligan sucks and they don't have a 2-drop. Interestingly, I don't think we saw any sideboard cards in either in that game too. So, as mentioned before, I don't think many of the sideboard cards really help them in any meaningful way. Zound Warrens from both players, not totally unexpected. On the other side, we had a Rengar versus Aurora matchup. Rengar has won that, so it will be Rengar versus one of these two. And Aurora haters rejoice, for Aurora has been knocked out of the top four. Two job coming out from Draven. Stack deck from Annie, looking for some good stuff. Does take one card, recycles the bottom two. Probably will match the other two job out from Draven. Indeed they will. Draven taking the first point. So far, so clean. Does discard for the Zound Warren's proc there, spinning cleave, sorry, I believe. Now, Draven does need to construct a hold here somehow. Or prevent Annie from moving in. There is a Ride the Wind. Or going for the double conquer. That is also probably the easier way of trying to maintain point tempo, if you can get a double conquer off on one turn. Diana players very aware of this tech with their Hui, as Draven will go up to 2 points on their second turn, in the second turn cycle. Another cleave going into the bin from the other Zound Warren's trigger. 3 treasures as well is not too shabby out here from the Draven player. Nox is hopeful as second card for turn and will pass back. Draven in a pretty commanding position here, as Annie will be forced, if they want to keep up in point tempo, they will be forced to try to do the same thing with the Ride the Wind, or maybe accelerate out a Kaiso or something similar. But otherwise, Annie will be behind in tempo and will need to break Draven's board. Which, to be fair, in Fury and Chaos, you're probably more equipped than others to be able to do that. But still fairly difficult, considering both players are in the same domain, so they'll be running very similar units and very similar combat tricks. Annie choosing instead to just develop her board. Passes back to Draven. Draven conquering once again with the Treasure Hunter. 0-3. Draven in a very commanding point lead here. Annie's probable game plan here is to try and clear Draven's entire board at once and then hold until and lock out the rest of the board. And he does have a couple Vex in the main deck, so as soon as she can construct a decent hold, she will probably go for it. Unfortunately, a falling star will take out one of her units. Draven will go up to 0-4 in Draven's favor. Pretty commanding lead here for Draven. 4-0 is almost impossible unless you're Aurelia. Aurelia or an Aurora deck. Draven choosing to present the conundrum to Annie. Figure it out. How are you going to get me off both of these battlefields? Obviously a falling star or something like that would be pretty good here. At least put some damage on the Noxus Hopeful and take out the Treasure Hunter, but Annie choosing to go straight in. First point there for Annie. Zounds Warren trigger on the chain. Discarding an Inferno, it looks like, drawing one. A lot of runes here for Annie. Should have some sort of damage-based spell in hand. Having looked at the deck lists, they actually don't have any falling stars in the main board, so just one in the side, if they did side it in. Oh. Kaisa being accelerated, coming out to conquer on the other battlefield. Not conquer, but at least trade here. Spinning Axe coming out to defend the Noxus Hopeful. So like I said, there's a lot of combat tricks coming out from both players here. Crucial combat here to try to hang on to things. Especially at least from the Annie, does not want to let go of it. Factory Reset coming in from the sideboard. Kaisa will win it thanks to that Factory Reset, putting that Spinning Axe back in Draven's hand. So we'll go to 2. 2-4 is better than 0-4. Readies 2 runes off the Legend ability and passes back to Draven. This is a little bit precarious for Annie. This is not a hold that you really want to be in. 2 runes up, enough to counter something. If Draven can get out an accelerated Kaisa of their own, at least slow them down a little bit from trying to catch up. But even then, even if they only go for... Even if they let Annie go up to 4-4, Draven will have the ability to respond first in that point race. A lot of runes going down right here. Own Kaisa accelerated. Choosing to tap everything outside of combat. 2 and 1 red recycled for the Spinning Axe coming in. And will take it off. So 2-5. Trying to figure out the draws from the combats from the Draven Legend and the Spinning Axe there. I believe the judge is stepping in there just to clarify. And the Zan Warren's trigger as well. So a few things on the chain here, trying to decide what to resolve what first. Annie in a pretty brutal position here. And there's the Zan Warren's trigger. Passes back to Annie. We'll go up for the hold. 3-5. Three to 5 is looking a lot better than 0-4, to be fair. Annie definitely trying to construct enough cards in hand for these holds. It is very difficult when you are behind. In these colors especially, to try to make that kind of point leapfrog here. Brings back the Traveling Merchant, discarding a Noxus Hopeful. Choosing to not commit more units to the board, looking for maybe combat tricks, damage spells. Some Starcross here would not go too awry, to be honest. Kaiser Accelerated does come out, and another one. Rengar, I apologize, sorry. Can't respond to units coming out. Draven will be forced off that battlefield. Annie up to 4. And now Draven's in a little bit of a spot of bother. If they also haven't been able to keep units in hand to be able to anticipate this eventuality. All Annie needs to do now is keep some damage spells in hand, keep Draven off the battlefields, and eventually the Annie will come back from having just more resources. The Legend letting you ready 2 runes, the Champion unit, and when it does come down to bring back a spell, is incredibly important. A Starcrossed at the right time here would be absolutely backbreaking here against this Draven. Kaiser coming out accelerated, both players just trading on the Zan Warrens. Draven will conquer it up to 6. Starcrossed also in Draven's hand. Probably thinking about whether to deploy it now or later. I don't know if it would be the right decision to deploy it now. You're already ahead in points. You kind of want to force your opponent to commit units to getting you off the battlefield first before you commit a Starcrossed. You get more value out of it. Right now you have what, the Traveling Merchant as a possible target. Being able to maybe return to hand a Ferris Forerunner or something later on down the track would be nice. Timely tide turner, I must say. But no runes up. We'll at least be able to hold on to the Kaisar for this eventual comeback from Annie. And he is quite reset here though. Considering options, whether to bring out the champion unit, and will do so. Choosing to bring back a cleave. Very much so an aggressive move. We'll use it on the traveling merchant, going in on the tide turner. Going up 5-6. So Annie's still behind, but that cleave helping with the assault trigger. The Ferris Forerunner going in the bend, clearly too slow right now with the point totals as they are. Does not have enough time to profitably use those mechs, and too constrained on resources to commit to it. And he now trying to construct a hold here, puts on the Noxus Hopeful onto that battlefield. Just the Annie champion left in base. Draven does have the Kaisar out and can choose to move on to the other Zaun Warrens if they want just a quick point. Will do so. Also gets them a little bit of card filtering here. The showdown is accepted, 5-7, by my count anyway. I might be wrong. Jin gets discarded to the Zaun Warren's trigger. Draven now needs to really consider their options. They do have a little bit of time. That is the one thing that they have that Annie does not, is that they have maybe a turn or two in order to develop a board to completely lock out the Annie here. In this case though, it is very difficult to construct a board like that in these colors. Draven trying to decide where to put the champion unit. Eventually reconsiders here. Lots of thinking going on here. Probably a lot of maths. Trying to figure out whether his combat tricks are enough. There is another tide turner in hand. But eventually does decide on the Draven onto the Seat of Power. Not on Seat of Power, excuse me, the Zaun Warrens. On the south side. Essentially asking Annie, do you have it? Considering they're on 7 points here, the hold would win them the game and thus the match to go into the finals. Hiding a card here to put more considerations in Annie's mind. We know that it is either a switcheroo or a tide turner. Those are probably the two main options here that Annie's thinking about. Don't know if a switcheroo would really help, considering how big Draven is. And I don't know if you really want to save the Kai'Sa. Neither one of these decks really can trade, can build high might units. They can't really go tall. They're really more looking at this kind of mid-range efficiency of their spells and their unit base mites. There's like a couple gears in here that could maybe swing it, a cleave, maybe a longsword, but nothing that would give such a massive swing that would require a switcheroo out of either player, I believe. A Tide Turner would make more sense as a reaction to something like a Starcrossed or maybe a Rebuke. Annie, considering all options, of course, going for the card filtering. Making sure they know what they have as options. And he does have a couple Gusts and Rebuke in the sideboard, so 100% possible that they want to go to some action nonsense in some showdowns to get a battlefield for free. Oh, well, for unit, without losing any units, I should say. Not for free. Spending 2 spells just to get a point in this situation would be... it would be a difficult trade. And he is behind 6-7, I believe, from the hold on the top Zound Warrants. But 2 spells to take 1 point might be a trade not good enough. Starcrossed coming out. So as mentioned, those spells from the Annie really helping out here to try to maintain tempo. The only real line here that would make much sense is to send the Annie into at least trade. But that hidden card, if it's a Tide Turner, means that they still hang on to it and win the game here. Does decide to go for it. And will play out the unit from hand. I can't see what it is because of the glare, but I assume it's a Rengar or a Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is also in this deck list. I need to fix my lights, but I'll do that in between matches here. Draven, now considering options, has a full grip of cards. 3 runes up. The Draven did commit very hard to this hold. So if this hold gets broken, I think that will be lights out on this match. It is a switcheroo. So deciding to switch with the Rengar. I don't think that helps him too much. The Annie will still get the Conquer off it as it stands. If it's either a Rengar or a Kha'Zix right now, that might is 6 switched over to Draven's Kai'Sa. So 6 for Draven and 8 on Annie's side, 4 from their Annie and 4 from the switched might. Draven deciding whether any more actions need to be taken here. Probably will want to at least ensure an equal trade, as if they pass it back they would still be in the lead. Spinning Axe does come out as the last trick here. +3 on the board, 9 versus 8. That will be enough to take Annie's both units out and hold on to it. That is GG being offered. Draven has done it. And I believe we'll see a Draven versus Rengar match in the finals. And we see both players packing it up here. Very tough in terms of the tempo in all 3 games there that we just saw. We'll quickly be right back after these messages. I need to get ready for the next game. So we will be right back with the finals, Rengar versus Draven. Give me a second. Yeah, yes.
Thumbs up when you're ready.
Yep, we'll do. Fair enough. A little bit is because I've got so many things tomorrow. I can try. Can you just leave this here for a second to check it out? God damn. Okay. Alrighty. I did not mute any of that, so you were looking at some nice, well, listening to some nice stuff. We will transition back. Both players cutting decks. Rengar versus Draven. Having looked at the Rengar deck list, we are looking at more of the sort of ambush, I guess you'd say, type of deck here. We're not trying to go over the top here with mighty units or anything like that. We're here to try to force out combat tricks from our opponent. Obviously, Draven, not really known apart from spinning axes and some long swords and things like that for being able to have those combat tricks, but can 100% go toe-to-toe with Rengar. Unbelievable. 2 Star Springs in game 1. Who would have thought? Obviously, Star Spring for both players helps with those point resets. As both players resolve mulligans, Rengar putting 2 away. And if you're wondering why Rengar's Legend and Champion unit are so shiny, it's because one of them is a signature alt art. So that's the one in the holder there. Fist bumps exchange as we get into game 1. Channeling 2 runes here for Rengar. And out with the Irresistible Feyfolk. Absolutely a menace from Unleashed. Acts as a charm on a stick, essentially. Incredibly useful in any body deck for being able to move around opponents' units and force more reactions out of them. Of course, on the line for Skirmish is the Rengar playmat, Rengar promo, already for the top 8, already distributed. And that first round buy for the next regional qualifiers, which probably for us here in Australia, you're probably looking at going to Singapore at some point. Draven choosing not to play anything on their first turn is a little bit unfortunate. Irresistible Feyfolk will go in on the first Star Spring, 1.2 Rengar. Follows it up with the Pit Rookie to bring those Irresistible Feyfolk back, and a buffed 100% more might on that Irresistible Feyfolk. And the extra +1 from the Rengar Legend ability as well. 2 Feyfolk now out on the battlefield, really looking to pull stuff every which way. Falling Star, very timely. Taking out both Irresistible Feyfolk. Happy to leave the Pit Rookie, probably looking at regaining that point tempo at a later point down the game. Nox is hopeful as second card for the turn will be discounted 50% off. You always love to see it. Rengar holding to 2. And Draven firmly now positioned back into the control side in this matchup. Rengar coming out. Ready to go to 2 points to 0. 3 points to 0, I should say. Choosing to deploy a Rengar from hand, keeping the Rengar in the champion zone for now. Draven in a sticky spot here. Already down in points tempo, which isn't too big of a deal if, say, you're an Aurora deck or maybe an Aurelia, where you're choosing to power up one thing and present an absurd board state. But Draven mid-range does need to play close to the opponent to have much of a chance here. 3-1, as Draven will conquer the top Star Spring here. And chooses an overzealous fan to hang on to the Star Spring, forcing Rengar to at least spend a couple more unit resources to try to take it, if they so choose. Unfortunately, Draven going second has to play more as the controlling player rather than the aggro. Rengar now definitely favoured just due to how the brackets turned out, unfortunately. Pit Rookie going in on the overzealous fan. Draven now with the decision, with the when I defend trigger on the chain as soon as the showdown starts. Will choose to accept that trigger, pushes Pit Rookie back. And Rengar's probably fine with that. You are looking to hold on to things. Looking to... you're already ahead on points is what I'm trying to say. You're not looking to construct or hold, I should say. You can afford to reset back in base if need be and force your opponent into a tricky hold situation that they do not want to be in. Kinku initiate for some more digging through the deck. And it was a Kai'Sa, not a Rengar, I apologize. I should have figured it out from the runes being tapped there, but 6 and a thing for an accelerated Kai'Sa makes a hell of a lot more sense than what I was spouting before. We do see a couple combat tricks here from Draven's hand. Unfortunately, it would be pretty difficult to use them profitably in any engagement here, unfortunately. You need those units alive to be able to score points in Riftbound, after all. So having more bodies on board will probably be more preferable than having the combat tricks. We'll decide to utilize the spinning axe to try to conquer over the Kai'Sa. Rengar, of course, with a few runes available, will punch first. +5 on Kai'Sa. So 9-7, I believe. Looks like Draven is deciding to use the rebuke to force the Kai'Sa back. Happy to, with that exchange of resources, getting rid of a punch first on nothing is actually pretty huge here. Not having that action available for Rengar to be able to hold on to these points is pretty insane. So negating one almost entirely is pretty nice. Did have to spend 2 cards for it though. Granted, the spinning axe does stick around, but does put him in a bit of a situation where he needs to be always on the offensive. Rebuking a Kai'Sa as well is... Not great. Certainly not something you would prefer to do, considering she can still come out accelerated at a later point in time, which is perfect for a Rengar to be able to then open a showdown and start playing more ambush units from hand. As I mentioned at the start of the game, this Rengar is constructed more as a ambush Rengar rather than a mighty Rengar. Has a bunch of the Grim Apothecaries in hand, in the main board, I should say. Yeah, so a full playset of Grim Apothecaries. You've got your Nidalees. You've got your Kaises as well. Full playsets of all of them. Falling Star coming out from Draven, choosing to try to completely eliminate Rengar's broad presence here. Some maths going on. And accepted. Passes back to Rengar. Now Rengar doesn't particularly mind. Does have the Kha'Zix in hand. Not the Kha'Zix, excuse me. The Kaisar in hand. Will go up for the hold. 4-2. Brings back the Inferno with the Kinku Initiate on the Star Spring. Score is 4-2 to Rengar. We have the Inferno going straight in onto the northern Star Spring, and the Nidalee coming out as action. So a lot of might being spent here. Also looking for some card advantage out from the Nidalee if they should win this combat. Inferno's Assault here is also really nice. There's a lot of might here that Draven can't respond to, since they're not spells, they're just triggered abilities here. Yeah, and that's Noxus helpful gone away. Will trade for the Nidalee, so obviously doesn't want to give free card advantage to the Nidalee, to the Rengar as much as possible. Rengar now up to 5-2 here in our game one. Draven obviously struggling a little bit as the control deck in this game one purely out of circumstance, really. And that is game one all wrapped up. GG's. Clearly Draven felt like they needed more units on board to be able to even come back in that situation. So that will be game 1 to Rengar. Both players now looking in their sideboards. The Draven probably is looking at more of those Starcrosts to try to force back some of those units and stop the Rengar, I should say, from conquering battlefields. They're probably the cleanest option, unfortunately, because some of those, some of the other removal options in red and purple are damage based. You're probably not going to be able to get over say Rengar's already 6 might, your falling stars are not going to do anything to a Rengar, and it seems like a very poor use of falling stars to go for that. Draven now on the play though does mean that they can construct probably a better hold here. They are playing 2 Vexes in the main deck, so getting a Vex out onto a battlefield quickly in turn 2 or 3 would be pretty huge here to stop a Rengar from aggressing with those ambush units. Probably looking to side out the Bryn here Thundersong as well. Not exactly great into Rengar, who's mainly just playing units, even at reaction speed. So we have Targon's Peak and Zaun Warrens as possible battlefields here for Draven. And then Rengar has Emperor's Dais and the Arena's Greatest. Obviously going second. You probably don't want to present a Arena's Greatest here, so I would happily assume that the Emperor's Dais coming out from Rengar. Draven probably will present the Targon's Peak, conquering first, and being able to hold on to those 2 runes and try to construct that critical hold from 1 to 2 is probably the name of the game here. And oh, I am so good at my job. Well, side gig, fist bumps exchanged, Emperor's Dais, and Targon's Peak, as I called it. Wow, I'm so good at predicting decks that I don't play. Mulligan's now looking to be resolved here. Just as a reminder, while we're waiting for these beginning actions of Game 2 to start, Rengar is up 1-0. And this is the finals for the Onestoppokeshop June Skirmish. Both players already very familiar. Played each other at a bunch of locals. And here we go into turn 1. Treasure Hunter, Sego. Nice and simple, 2-drop. Rengar will respond in kind with 2 things, in fact. We've got the Sentry and the Inferno. So Rengar with a little bit more options here. I am interested in how Sentry kind of plays, considering you can't bring it back to base. It is enough to hold on to a battlefield from many of the other 2-drops though. So being that 1 cost extra unit on your turn 1 when you're going second might be enough to regain point tempo. But I don't play orange decks all that often, so anybody enjoys, let me know. Treasure Hunter going in onto Targon's Peak. 0-1 for the Draven. And an Overzealous Fan also being played onto the same battlefield. 2 runes being ready to end of turn thanks to the Targon's Peak trigger. The Noxus Hopeful obviously discounted from being the second card played in that turn. Rango, considering options here, sends in the Sentry onto the Emperor's Dais. We'll go up to a level score here, 1-1. Does choose to bring it back to hand with the Sand Soldier for 1 energy there. Very useful for a deck that enjoys replaying units over and over again, especially at ambush speed. Sentry being replayed at base, Inferno going up a bunch thanks to Rengar's Legend ability. 2 units, so +2 might being played here. Inferno probably looking to come in on the Targon's Peak and start really early, preventing that crucial 1-2 hold. And does present it to Draven. Do you have it? Overzealous Fan trigger on the stack. On the chain. Excuse me. On the chain. And oh, we've got some Manfield antics going on here. Choosing whether or not to push back the Inferno. It is accepted, and the Nidalee played in response to the Overzealous Fan trigger being accepted here. So the showdown is still going. Nidalee obviously getting the +1 from Rengar. So we're looking at 4-2 here. Massive. Rengar coming back and taking the point tempo. 2-1. Draven did keep the Noxus Hopeful in base though, so it does have at least some ability to equalize the score here. Options being considered. 2 energy and a power spitting axe coming out on the Noxus Hopeful, +3, 7 going in on this Nidalee. Rengar with only 2 runes is not a lot. And will give it up. Showdown will resolve. Draven drawing from winning that combat. Equalizing the score here, 2-2 here in game 2. Tide Turner out here as well. And the 2 runes from the Targon's Peak trigger. Oh, no one's forgetting it now. No one wants to be that guy at in the finals of an RQ. As Rengar readies all of his cards here. While we're waiting for some action, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that I will also be at Spellroo tomorrow. Still deciding if I'm participating. I probably won't, to be honest, just to be able to stream and cast it for you guys. But we'll see how we go. Rengar does choose to go straight in onto the Tide Turner. I believe it is an Inferno in his base, yes. Nidalee and Sentry had gone in on the Targan's Peak. Tide Turner and Sentry have traded, and Rengar has conquered with the Nidalee, drawing one from that combat, up 3-2. As Rengar does pass the turn back to the Draven. Onestoppokeshop in Chatswood is actually pretty nice. A little bit small, but nicely organized. Nice play area. Can't complain. They let me set up a bloody casting station. So, you know. Nox is hopeful with the spinning axe, trying to get rid of this Nidalee once again. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't seen more Grim Apothecaries out from Rengar. This build really likes to leverage and lean heavily on Thrill of the Hunt and Grim Apothecary in order to dodge removal and things like that. Obviously, going into Draven, it's not as good as into a spell-based matchup, but not taking advantage of your main game plan is a little bit weird. Riding the wind over to try to take over Emperor's Dais, I believe, here. Draven looking for the double conquer to regain point tempo. Currently 3-3 with that Targan's Peak conquer. Rengar choosing to respond by ambushing it onto the Targan's Peak, so letting the Emperor's Dais go for the moment. Judge stepping in to remind players that Noxus Hopeful is readied at the end of the Ride the Wind spell resolution. We'll get off the double conquer. So 3-4 now in Draven's favor, but the tempo now in the balance because Rengar will go to 4-4 should the Draven not choose to get rid of this Rengar on the Targan's Peak here. Looks like Judge has been called in for something. Not entirely sure. Still on Draven's turn, considering his options here. He may have equalized the score here, but unless they get rid of that Rengar, won't have the full advantage of being able to reset. Decides to move the unit back anyway. Probably doesn't have enough units in hand to be able to comfortably construct a hold. Draven out here from the champion zone, so his might will be increased by 4. So pretty beefy. Definitely not something to be underestimated here. And passes back the turn to Rengar. So choosing to not get rid of the Rengar, Rengar will go up to 4-4 here in game 2. Rengar now going to 5-4. So as I mentioned earlier, Draven only managed to slightly claw back some of that tempo. Inferno being returned to hand thanks to the Emperor's Dais trigger there with the Sand Soldier. Rengar does have kind of the luxury of, if they want to, resetting. But it looks like he's going to try to construct a hold here. Pit Rookie coming out, buffing Rengar. And the +2 from the Legend. So a challenge coming out. So directly going after the Draven, which will be enough because of the +2 from the Legend ability and the buff. So Rengar at 9, Draven only at 8. Passes back the turn. And this puts Draven in a very difficult position. Obviously, Rengar's not expecting to go to 7 after this turn. As always, it's a little bit more awkward to play on odds than evens, but 7 is still a very threatening scoreline here. It does mean that Rengar will be able to get some card advantage essentially for free. Draven not really great at holding 2 battlefields. Not something any deck in general wants to do. Cleave being played for the +3 for the assault. Nox is hopeful going in. 4, 5, 8 by my count. Punch first. I must be counting something wrong. Someone can probably correct me in chat. But I thought Cleave was assault 3. I'm very confused why Punch first is being played here, but a +5 might to Rengar anyway. Really trying to make sure that Rengar stays alive. Judge stepping in to take away dice. Ooh, hard bargained. Punch first is counted here. Will not get the +5 might. So I must have miscounted somewhere, because apparently Noxus Hopeful was big enough to get rid of both of them. So fair play, 5 to 5. Rengar obviously not happy that his massive cat got wrecked. But 6 does mean he can set up for a double conquer potentially next turn. But can't rush it. Ooh, ride the wind out for the Noxus Hopeful. Will crush those dreams. I apologize. 5 to 6 for Draven. Draven now in the lead for the first time in this game. Oh, incorrect. No, he started with the lead. He just lost it. But having now successfully taken it back, Draven in a very commanding position here. Rengar will need to spend at least a turn off to regenerate a board. Draven does need to win this game to push us to game 3. Options being considered. As these options are being considered, I would like to present to you the option of continuing to follow the stream, following Sydney Skirmish escapades tomorrow. I will be at Spellroo. Tide Turner eventually coming out, but not switching around anything. Probably just looking for next turn. Or maybe the Tide Turner when I play abilities on this deck? Nope. Ooh! Big boy. Coming out. And that's the conquer and pass. 6 to 6. 6 to 7 actually now. From the hold. Draven just needs to hold on to this battlefield. Once again, probably not the position he wants to be in. Falling Star going in. Trying to go for the conquer here. Nidalee being played in response. I apologize for the glare on the cards. I tried to fix it. Kai'Sa is down for the count. Nidalee there to hold on to the battlefield. The +1 from the Legend Rengar coming in clutch for might currently. Tide Turner and Spinning Axe. That is game 2. Draven will take game 2. So that means we're going to a game 3, ladies and gentlemen. Rengar will once again be on the play. Very tough match. Really close. Draven slow rolling his resources particularly well there in order to claw back that point tempo lead. If you've got any LGSs near you that you think would appreciate a caster, feel free to let me know. I am around on the Riftbound Australia Discord after all. I do have all the equipment, I just need power and Wi-Fi. Or ideally an Ethernet connection, but you know, we can't always get what we want. If you have any suggestions, questions, queries about the stream or my casting, please feel free to leave me a message in the Riftbound Australia Discord as well. Feedback is appreciated. Next time I'll probably try to have battlefields up. It is quite difficult to edit and overlay when you're only given 2 minutes before the match starts. Don't want to keep these players waiting. They've already had a full day of Riftbound. This was 4 Swiss rounds into a top 4 cut. So only 16 players. Kind of makes sense. Only 16. Top 8 is literally half the field. So those other 4 players are pretty happy for getting a Rengar promo for not a lot of work. Deck cuts exchanged. Battlefields revealed. The last 2, Arena's Greatest and Zound Warrens. Arena's Greatest really coming here to really benefit Rengar here, being first player. Already having 1 point up is pretty huge. Doesn't have to construct a 1 to 2 hold. Both players very jovial about the situation. Lots of laughter going on. I do believe in the first round they said they matched against each other and said they would meet again in the finals. So here we are indeed. Mulligans being resolved here. 2 runes up as we head into game number 3. Irresistible Feyfolk out here as your first 1 drop. 2 drop, sorry. And matched with the Tide Turner. Fey Folk onto the arena's greatest. Pulling in the Tide Turner. Grim Apothecary coming out. This is what I was more expecting out from this Rengar. Obviously taking advantage of the Legend ability here. And the ambush effects to really pump up those smaller units higher. Spinning Axe also here, so both players being very prepared for this eventuality. Really doesn't want to give up that 1 to 2 hold. Cleave, I should say, rather than Spinning Axe. Punch first will also be played as an action. Tide Turner out of there as Grim Apothecary will overcome it with 8 might. 9 might, I should say, because of the legend ability. Excuse me. So Rengar going to 2 points here. Turn is passed back to Draven. Tide Turner, another one, very nice. Nox is hopeful, probably coming out again. Setting up for another turn. Rengar will go to 3. Draven once again in the control seat here. Really needs to use their cards more efficiently here than their opponent. Rengar definitely has the little bit of a luxury in terms of being a little bit more inefficient, going 1 for 1 here to keep units off board is the name of the game. Rengar choosing to let go of the battlefield for now. Does have the luxury of resetting. Draven now needs to think, is it worth it trying to regain the point tempo, at least equalizing it, to go on both battlefields? Obviously incredibly risky. Chooses first to go on Zound Warrens. Goes 3 to 2. Zound Warrens trigger on the chain now. Jin being discarded for that card draw. So indeed opting into the double conquer here. 3 to 3. Obviously Rengar having the ability to respond first is huge here in any game of Riftbound. So Draven thinking that they have enough tricks to cover both battlefields here. I think I see a overzealous fan, or oh no, the treasure hunter and a switcheroo in hand. Oh, and a Vex comes out. Definitely one of the bane of Rengar here. Draven here looking to construct a hold, apparently. Really putting all their resources onto the Zound Warrens basket. Vex coming out here in front of the Rengar is huge here for the ambush version of Rengar. Can't afford to ambush in now, has to slow roll everything for the Draven to be able to see. A lot of the Grim Apothecaries, Starcrossed, etc. looking a lot worse now here for Rengar. He can't play Starcrossed, so absolutely terrible, I should say. But you know, Grim Apothecaries, all that kind of dodging is negated here. Grim Apothecary will take back Arena's Greatest 4-3. So Rengar deciding to try to keep hold of the point tempo as much as possible. Rengar could choose to opt into a defensive game plan here by kind of copying Draven and trying to construct a hold. Probably not the best idea, as both these decks like to be aggressive. Letting Draven become the aggro deck when you've been the aggressor the entire time might not be the greatest plan here, but what do I know? I don't play either one of these decks. Irascible Fearfolk will pull over Vex. So the Rengar choosing to construct this hold in order to be able to get rid of that Vex is definitely one of the signs why this Vex Cheerless is such a great card in any purple deck, and everyone else who's not playing purple absolutely hates it. It's an incredible tempo swing should you ever be able to hold it onto a battlefield for at least a turn or two. Draven considering options here. One rune up, so not a lot that can be represented here. Combat damage has now been exchanged. Vex for Nidalee. Excuse me. So Rengar's gotten the biggest roadblock out of the way. Draven maybe playing the Vex a little bit too quickly here. But it's always so hard to decide when you should deploy a Vex. Of course, if Draven has the other Vex in hand, then, you know, hoi voi, we're still on. It will be 4-4 on the Draven hold. So Draven's still behind here in point tempo. Considering options. And if you need to consider your options for buying cards, maybe you should consider Onestoppokeshop. I feel like I should chill at least once for the place that I'm casting at, that they've let me come here. Tide Turner swapping out the Noxus Hopeful. The largest might unit that the Draven does have on the field right now. Will go in bare butt naked. Obviously Rengar should be a little bit suspicious here. But Draven is just going for the straight trade, 1 for 2. Unfortunately, I don't know if that was too great a trade. I mean, you got a 1 for 2. Like, awesome, you know. You are spending less cards in order to deprive your enemy of more resources on board. But an ambush Rengar only needs one unit to be able to start a showdown, and then boom, out comes a Rengar, a Nidalee, etc. A Kha'Zix. Not Kha'Zix, because red, orange, but you know what I mean. Draven will pass the turn back to Rengar. Rengar now up 5-4 from the hold. Rengar straight in onto the Zound Warrens, doesn't want to let them hold onto it for very long. Rengar being played out of the champion zone as ambush. Once again gets the +1 from the legend. Lots of might being deployed here. Probably looking to challenge the Draven after. And once all is said and done, Rengar will take it. 6-4. And now Draven with a bunch of stuff. Really needs to consider his options here. Obviously needs to get rid of at least one battlefield. The Draven champion unit would be 8 might right now. 6-4 in Rengar's favor. Will indeed get rid of the sentry. Combat resolves for 6-5. Primary objective is achieved here for Draven. Drawing 1 off the combat win. We do see a hard bargain in hand, so probably holding that for a thrill of the hunt, which we haven't seen at all in these games, which is pretty interesting. Hasn't felt the need to deploy it, as in every showdown so far. He's been very committed to trying to win it. Hasn't needed to dodge any spell-based removal, which I guess is to be expected if you're playing against Draven. 7-5 in Rengar's favor. Rengar going for, looks like preparing for a double conquer at some point. Kai'Sa not accelerated. 7-6. Draven now at 10 might. So pretty big here. We can see that the Draven did draw a Ride the Wind, which would be massive for a double conquer turn. But can't afford to leave a battlefield here. Otherwise it would just be giving the win and the buy over to Rengar. Very awkward position to be in. Passes the turn over. Probably looking to ride the wind to wherever Rengar decides to go to. Rengar just needs to be able to calculate all these lines out that Draven could possibly have in order to lock it up and take home that sweet Rengar playmat. Repeated hard bargain coming out for that spell. I can't quite see what that spell was, but whatever it was must have been huge. To try to force out that many runes. Probably also wants to deprive Rengar from playing anything else. It was a sabotage, excuse me. And paid for. Switcheroo and Ride the Wind now face up. Switcheroo put back in the bin. Ride the Wind as Rengar's only option. Excuse me, Yes. The switchery should be recycled, as has been done. This Kaiser will go in onto Zan Warrens, presenting Draven with the dilemma. Do you contest this now, or do you wait? It gives Rengar one extra card if he doesn't contest it now. However, should he choose to move, it also leaves it open for the double conquer. If Draven then loses that showdown. There's a lot of thinking going on. Can't blame him. Oh, runes are being exhausted here. And recycled. There is the Ride the Wind. Draven will move over and attempt to contest this Kai'Sa. Rengar now just needs to show that he can make more might. Punch first. And that is GG's. Rengar will lock it up in Game 3. Friendly will win the Summoner Skirmish here at Onestoppokeshop for June. Quite unfortunate there for Draven, just got behind, and unfortunately in these types of matchups you can't come back from it. Yeah, GG guys. It was a fun top 4. We almost had an Aurora here, but unfortunately lost to the Rengar. No, Rengar won. I believe. Hang on. Let me double check. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh no! Yeah, no, Rengar won. I'm right. Yeah, no, Rengar won. Rengar won. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did the maths correct in my head. Anyway, thanks so much for coming here, guys. This has been Onestoppokeshop's June Skirmish. Tomorrow I will be at Spellroo for their Summoner Skirmish for June. Hopefully casting their top 8. If you're there, hope to see you there. If not, feel free to tune into the stream once again. Hopefully I'll get everything set up nice for that time. Otherwise, yeah, catch you guys on the next one.